What's up, everybody? Today we are going to be doing a video on our roundup of the TrueNAS Tech Talk episode 33. This is known as T3. You will see it in the YouTube channel over here under TrueNAS Tech Talk T3. I suggest you guys subscribe to this channel. They definitely need some help at 2.76 thousand subscribers. I love this podcast. If you're using TrueNAS, this is a great way to get news directly from the source. I'm basically going to be recapping for you, but I suggest you go and watch this video yourself and listen to both the Chris's, who both work for IX Systems, by the way, talk about what's going on behind the scenes and what's coming up next for TrueNAS, because this is the best source of information about any future releases you will see. Besides the actual T3 video, if you jump over to the forum, you can see that there is an announcement section right over here for forums.truenas.com, and up top you usually see some posts from the last video. So this is episode 32, this is episode 33 right here, and if I click it, this is what you're going to see. It's going to link you directly to the video. It's going to just do a quick little summary paragraph up here about what the video is about, as well as host community discussion about what is said in the video, so we can get some clarification sometimes. If they say things like, you know, there might be a change coming to virtualization, for example, and they just kind of gloss over something that maybe we need a little bit more information on, we can go ahead and post here on the forum and get answers directly from the Chris's. Honey Badger is the Chris on the right, and Chris Moore is, I forget what his username is here, but you'll see him come up here. So if you see anything by Honey Badger, anything with these guys with the shields, these are usually guys that work for IX themselves. You can also see their little logo here in the bottom right. So go ahead and look for those guys. These are not community members. These are actual employees that you'll get direct information from. Starting on this video, when I scroll down here, we can see the timestamps. This is going to give us an overall look at some of the topics that were covered. And the first thing I want to talk about is just another recap here of the virtualization changes. Now we're calling it, or they're calling it, I should say, Virtualization Classic. So Virtualization Classic is what used to exist on Electric Eel before we went over to the quote-unquote Instances tab, which ran Incus under the hood. So if you missed the announcement going a few weeks back now, and a couple of videos I've put out that I've talked about it, the long story short is that we're now in 25.04.2, which is going to come at the end of July. The code freeze has already happened, which means we are locked in. They're just finishing out now how to do the integration. They're going to change the way the tabs look in TrueNAS, so you will have basically two tabs. When we look at the current dashboard, right now we just have the Instances tab, but again, going forward towards the end of July for the next update, you're going to have virtualization probably on top of that between instances and credentials and instances. And the difference is going to be the virtualization tab is the same virtualization it was in Electric Eel. So if you're currently running VMs in Electric Eel and you're worried about migrating because you think Incus is going to break things, one, you may be right, and two, you might not have to worry about that much longer, because if you upgrade directly from Electric Eel 24.10.2.2 to 25.04.2, you should have a clean path of migration, because the virtualization can be the same for both of those systems. You don't have to use the Incus underlying tab for instances. But if you already are using instances like I am, I think for what I have on here, Pterodactyl and Qubit right now, I'm going to go ahead and stop that. Besides those two that I have running, I can keep these going into the next update of 25.04.2 because they're going to continue to run both systems going forward. Again, right now there is no end for both of those, where the goal for IX is to take the experimental tab off of instances completely and possibly run Incus and the original KVM, QEMU style virtualization from Electric Eel. So if you've missed the past few announcements, that's the goal going forward that they covered in the very beginning of the video. It's literally the first thing they talk about, just the fact that virtualization 25.04.2 and 25.10 going forward will be both Virtualization Classic from Electric Eel as well as Incus, and that's what's going to be going on as they go forward. There was a really cool section here on how Community Edition benefits TrueNAS and a viewer question on Community Edition. So this goes on for, oh man, probably all the way until 11/24. I think a little bit longer. These 4 timestamps all cover Community Edition. I'm going to sum them up for you like this. A viewer literally asked, hey, how much longer is this going to be free? Because obviously good things like this sometimes end up just being totally paywalled. And the Chris's came out and were very adamant about the fact that TrueNAS Community Edition will always exist. It will always be free Obviously, some features are paywall that are reserved just for enterprise clients, and that's not things that you usually see typically run in home labs. So again, I've been running TrueNAS now since Angelfish, I believe, or Anglefish, and I've never felt like I needed the enterprise features for just the home labbing that I do here, which is it's getting pretty aggressive. And even with that, I still don't need enterprise features. But the long story short of that is, Community Edition is basically the testing ground for enterprise. So when new features are getting ready to be pushed, the Community Edition actually gets them first. And the reason for that is we are kind of the test dummies for some of these features, and as we continue to give them feedback and test for them, we're basically free testers. If IX had to employ testers to actually work out every single nook and cranny of TrueNAS before they set it to enterprise, they would lose a lot of money, because it's expensive to hire guys like that. The Community Edition being given away for free basically allows them to use us as free testers, who then give them free feedback, which allows them to completely renovate and innovate their product, and then give a very polished, complete, high-functioning product to people who are willing to pay for it, their customers. So we're essentially strengthening their business model by them being able to say, hey, we've tested this with 10,000 people, and we've gotten feedback from 10,000 testers, and they've given us all this information, we've gone and made improvements, and this is the product that we're delivering to you right now. So if you're an enterprise person, that's great, because now somebody else is breaking things for you, so your company's stuff doesn't break. If you're TrueNAS, or IX in this case, you don't have to actually pay testers for that, because we're testing it for free, because it's being given to us for free. Everybody wins in this case. So that's really a great model that I support 100%. I hope this is the model that continues going forward, because of just how great of a thing it is. I get free TrueNAS. TrueNAS uses me as a tester, and I give them feedback, and then the enterprise clients get a very polished product, and they pay for it, and their money goes to TrueNAS, which then uses to IX, which then allows them to hire more and better people and pay their people better to continue to develop this product, which I keep getting for free. So this positive feedback loop, I think, is incredible, and I completely support it. And that's why I'm really glad to see things like 934 here. Community Edition isn't going away. Thank you guys at IX for giving me this for free, because I am using it to do amazing things, and I couldn't be happier that I get free access to software like this, which is so powerful and gets so many updates and so much attention. I think it's absolutely excellent. The next thing I really want to cover in a little bit of depth is this at 2149, which is Nvidia sunsetting Maxwell, Pascal, and Volta in 590. So if you guys don't know anything about the idea of these drivers, 590.xx is going to be the driver version. I think they're on 570 right now in TrueNAS, and 578 or something like that is what they talked about. 576 on the actual podcast where they talk about that. That's what Windows gamers are using right now for their video drivers. 590 is coming out shortly. Once they do that, they're going to sunset Maxwell, Pascal, and Volta. If you don't know what these means, these are just the code names for model numbers, and this is going to hit me square in my NAS, because I am actually using this. So if you use a Nvidia 10 series graphics card or a Quadro P series graphics card, you are no longer going to be supported whenever they roll this version into TrueNAS. So right now, they're on 570. That's what they have now. I don't know when 590 is going to be released, and I don't know when that's going to actually make it into the TrueNAS kernel, but when it does, people like me are going to have to get a new video card, because my video card is literally going to not be supported by the kernel anymore. So when I come over here to my TrueNAS, for example, and I go to my apps, and then I go to configuration and settings, you won't see it here because it's just my test machine, but you should, if you have an NVIDIA card, you get a little checkbox down here that says install NVIDIA drivers. That's not even going to work for me, even though I have an NVIDIA card, because the P400 is going to be so far out of date at this point that the drivers aren't even going to cover it. So if you've got like a 1060 or a 1050 or 1060 Ti, something in the 1000 range card, or if you have a Quadro P something, you're not going to be covered once this 590 rolls out into the TrueNAS kernel. So this is kind of a big deal, because I know a lot of us use GPUs for transcode. The reason I picked the P400, I got it off eBay for $50, and I can do 4 simultaneous transcode streams for 4K with it, and that's with it locked. There's actually a trick to get it to do like a much higher, almost unlimited amount of 4K streams by modding something very specific I'm not sure if it's the kernel or the card itself on the firmware running on the card, but you can do some pretty cool stuff with that, and the card was $50. So I'm like, this is pretty amazing. That's why I have one, and it's not going to work eventually. So if you're one of the people like me who are using a Quadro P series or an NVIDIA 10,000 something, 1060, 1050, whatever that may be, keep an eye on this, because when this happens, we are all going to have to go out and get new video cards. The last thing covered here that we're going to really look at is going to be Agentic AI. And you'll see this is quite a little bit. It goes from 23 minutes to just about 29 minutes in total. So it's the second most heavily covered topic in this video, besides talking about the community edition and what makes that kind of tick and how that works in the background for IX systems. Agentic AI is what you guys would consider something like an LLM, things like Claude, that are being used to do things like write code. So they're talking about this, and they use Claude specifically, mentioning Claude by name, because, of course, these guys deal in code quite a bit. The summary of the conversation was like, pretty much what everybody's saying right now. If you know what you're doing and you use something like Claude, it can be pretty amazing. It's a great tool. If you don't know what you're doing, it's not going to help you a whole lot because you can't judge what it's like. It's basically a garbage in, garbage out. If you don't know what to tell Claude, Claude's not going to know how to answer you. And when it answers you incorrectly, you're not going to be able to catch those mistakes, and you're not going to be able to correct it and start steering Claude or any agentic AI towards the direction that you're trying to go for your code deployment or whatever deployment you're trying to do. It's pretty amazing, don't get me wrong. The Chris's will both tell you that, yeah, no, AI is going in leaps and bounds, and that's why I'm talking about where will it be by Christmas. Is it going to be to the point where it can write a whole operating system by Christmas? That's a really interesting conversation that I'm not going to get super deep into, but only because the idea behind AI, again, it's a tool. We should not be leaning on it super heavily. We still need to have the hard skills as humans. So in order to be able to use these tools properly, there's a lot of different metaphors I can make, but just because, for example, looking at something like Agentic AI, some of these things are absolutely just tanks. And just because you know how to drive a car doesn't mean you know how to drive a tank. There's a huge difference, even though they both have wheels and they go forward and backwards. So you got to be really careful with Agentic AI, with AI in general, and making sure you're not leaning on it too heavily, using it for the tool that it is, and knowing those hard skills you have to know going into it. The idea of coming into an Agentic AI with no skills at all and expecting it to do things for you is not realistic in this day and age. And I hope it ends up never being realistic, because it's just not. That's not a world that I really want to live in. And not that it's my choice, but that's not what the idea is. The idea is these are tools made for people that are professionals to use them. Not saying you have to be a professional, but if you want to use them, definitely get some professional level knowledge, whether it be the internet or textbooks or YouTube or something. Learn how to use that thing so that you don't end up being one of these people who just ends up writing very, very insecure code because you don't know how to actually evaluate the code for things like security, which are one of the things that the Chris has mentioned. So that was pretty much the last thing they covered before the outro. And I want to get your feedback, guys. I want to know what you think of doing these kind of recaps. Is this helpful? Is this not? Leave me a comment below if there's something you want to see me talk about, or something that you think that I should be covering even more than I am. If you want to have a lot more in-depth discussion, please jump on Discord and start a post right there, probably on the general thread, just so everybody can get involved. If you want to thank me personally for this, please buy me a coffee. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much for listening.